What do you think the biggest adjustments the Detroit Pistons need to make for game 2?
I mean, there's quite a few adjustments I think they could make. I've obviously been ranting on all my social medias, and I ranted for about 20 minutes yesterday on the podcast about one in particular that I think is just the easiest one to make, which is just simply keep Asar on the floor, like play him minutes like that. It's not hard, just play him minutes. So I think that's the easiest one. The next one I think is even more impactful, honestly, than just playing Asar, but I think that one actually requires you to do some work, which is Jalen Duren needs to be involved. You need to get him going somehow. I thought this was probably his worst game I can remember watching from him in quite some time. And the Pistons have no chance, not just in this series, but doing anything in these playoffs if they're not going to get great production out of Jalen Duren, and they need to find a way to get that out of him. So those would be the two main adjustments I'd make. Just play Asar, play him more, and then get Jalen Duren involved and find a way to get him aggressive on offense, because 8.7 rebounds against Wendell Carter Jr. It's not like he's going against Rudy Gobert or, Victor Wembanyama. I mean, he should not have been that non-existent in game 1.
Do you think it was more of just Orlando's game plan with packing the paint, why he was frustrated? Because I felt like every time, like very early on in the first quarter, you saw that they were trying to go to that mismatch, and Orlando just packed the paint. You think it was just more of Orlando's game plan versus Jalen Duren's production offensively?
I think a lot of it had to do. I think some of it had to do with Orlando's scheme against him. But this was something I've talked about on the podcast all year, is that you have seen like this huge, incredible jump from Jalen Duren as a scorer. He has been incredible as a scorer this year. He's taken such a jump. But what came with that was a very big step back, I think, in his passing. And throughout the season, you live with it because it was just an overwhelming positive and overwhelming something that you just, if we're losing passing, it is what it is, means so much more right now. We need it, to where you just didn't really care about it. And I would just bring it up every now and then, like, hey, we're not seeing the same kind of passing from him. He's turned the ball over and then he has assists. Like, it's not the scoring will take it, but eventually I think the passing got to come around. And Orlando did exactly why Zach Lowe talked about this on the Bill Simmons podcast, that they had heard from scouts that they were worried about during going into the playoffs. And it was something I think we saw in game 1, which was, like you mentioned, Orlando was packing the paint. Orlando was throwing multiple bodies at him, but there were avenues to open guys. He could have found multiple players open. There's a play going around on Twitter I had just seen where Duren gets the ball on the right block, and Isaiah Stewart's wide open in the left corner for an easy pass there. Man left him, or Asar is diving right down the middle of the floor. He could dump it off to him, and instead he goes up with the shot and gets blocked. So I think that, yes, Orlando did do a good adjustment trying to take the scoring away from him. But if Jalen Duren would make Orlando pay as a passer, they would stop playing that way. Like if they were showing this many bodies and he could routinely beat them with dump offs to Asar or corner skip passes to whoever they're tagging off of, they would be scared to do that. And then that would then reopen his scoring opportunities. I think that's the big adjustment he's going to have to make in the playoffs.
Yeah, I noticed that a lot too. Like there was a lot of opportunities for him just to make the extra pass, but it seemed like he was just in like a score mentality first. That Asar pass, that Asar play where he could kind of cut. I know exactly what you're talking about. I almost threw my remote at the TV because I was like, bro, he's right there. But yeah. Honestly, like I think you're right. He does have to kind of like make that extra read, because we've seen it this year. Like there's been flashes of him like making the correct read. I believe there was I can't remember which game it was, but he had the ball in his hands and it was just a corner three. It might have been Tobias or Javonte Green where he made the read, but I think it's just more watching film and kind of like paying attention more to the details. And like you mentioned, it's Wendell Carter. I feel like he played better against Rudy Gobert in the 2 games we saw in the regular season. Even he was more aggressive against Victor Wembanyama. So I'm with you. I think they do need to, focus more on just kind of making the extra pass, because I felt like this was one game where they really weren't moving the ball whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, during the final 10 games of the season, averaged 4 assists a game. And I talked about in the podcast, I was like, maybe this final stretch without Cade, you started to see him start to blend the scoring with the passing to where he doesn't have to turn on pass mode and turn off score mode, or turn on score mode and turn off pass mode, where he maybe has figured out how to have both modes on and just be able to make teams pay. And that was completely not the case against Orlando. It felt like he was completely thrown off that they were sending so many bodies at him. Early in the first quarter, I believe he had 3 turnovers in the first quarter off of him, either in the first quarter or the first half. where there was one where he tried to do a crossover on Wendell, and there was a guy helping at the block. He could have hit that for a corner skip pass. There's a pass I was talking about earlier into the game as well. There was another one he tried driving against. I believe it was also Wendell Carter Jr. again, but then Paolo helped down at the nail, and he got ripped up, and it hit off his foot, went out of bounds. I think Duren, I think it's more so he was just, I don't know why, but it seems like he was just shocked at how much attention was being thrown at him, and he just wasn't in the mental space to be able to make these reads, which I think was really killer for the Pistons. I think you started to see even Cade kind of, I don't know if it wasn't strictly just Duren, but I feel like you kind of felt Cade in the second half realized, okay, no one else has it. I'm just going to take over here. I'm just going to do everything I possibly can to try to deliver us a win here because no one else has it right now. I'm just going to get these shots up. Whereas like in the first quarter, there was a play where Cade tries to lob it to Duren, and it gets knocked away. He could have dribbled up into a pull-up. No one was in front of him, or he could have kicked it out to Duncan for a three. In the second half, he was coming off these picks. He was no longer looking for lobs. He was coming off the screens, hitting pull-up threes. He was coming off looking for a mid-range pull-up. He was putting his back to his defender, using his size to elevate over him. So I think Cade adjusted in real time to what he felt like his teammates specifically Duren, just was not in the space that you need them to be in.
Yeah, I feel like Cade definitely made adjustments coming out of halftime. It kind of seemed like he was just trying to get everyone involved, and then it was like, okay, like if they don't have it, I'm just going to take over. I mean, we've seen that countless times by Cade. But one other player I did kind of want to touch on is like, didn't really see too much Danish Jenkins, Cade Cunningham minutes. I didn't think we're going to get it in the playoffs. Were you kind of surprised by that?
Surprised by which part?
Just Danish being out there with Cade.
I was very surprised about them closing with Danish. Yes, that part I was very. Not only was I surprised by it, I was pretty frustrated about it. But look, the Danish Cade duo, it's been something that a lot of fans have talked about. That like, oh, Danish plays so well when Cade's out, and then when Cade's back, he doesn't play as well. I understand what JB is thinking. I'm not going to act like I don't understand what he's thinking. I get what he's thinking, that give Cade another ball handler on the floor, another guy that can create. That should, or take away some of the pressure that Cade's going to deal with. The problem is that Danish is he rides these highs and lows and these hot and cold stretches, and it really all is just tied to his 3-point shot making. He's not a very good finisher inside the arc. He was shooting around 43% on twos this year, but he's been such a high impactful 3-point shooter at times where he's making like 44%, especially during that stretch without Cade, where you really are just completely living or dying with, okay, is Danish hot from three in this game? If he is, okay, you're probably going to have a great one. If he's not, he's going to struggle in this one. I was especially surprised that we saw Cade and Danish in the fourth when the adjustment JB had made. Franz was killing them in the first part of the fourth quarter, getting to the basket over and over against Tobias. And then the counter coming out of the timeout was they got smaller, and you often saw Danish get switched on the Franz a ton, and that created a whole nother issue. So I'm not saying that they shouldn't ever run the Cade Danish minutes. I get why you do, but you need to be careful in the minutes you do it. I think 1 and 2, Danish needs to be playing well, because if he's not hitting threes, we have a season-long sample that he's just not good enough inside the arc. And we have a bit of a sample size that him and Cade aren't the greatest fit together for whatever reason it is. And again, I think it really just ties to if he's hitting threes or not. I just think they need to be careful about when they decide to employ those lineups, and specifically when Danish is on fire.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think what was frustrating was just like the over dribbling and not moving the ball when I saw those two out there together, because when Cade was out, I felt like they were really moving the ball. I mean, there'd be games where they're having like 30, 35 assists. It's just not so much ball movement with those two in the backcourt. And I agree with you. Like when he's not hitting shots, it's very apparent that he's not impactful. I was surprised maybe like if you want another 2-guard out there, like why not just try a Cade, Kevin Huerter?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Yep.